are rocking and rolling to week 9. I mean, we blink because we were at week 1, early August. Now we blink and we're in week 9. It's going by so fast, but it's been a crazy season all in one. So we're ready to rock and roll. I'm pretty sure this weekend's going to get, even more crazy. So, but what better way to kick off week 9 and just to talk about week 9 then with our very special guest, Chad Withrow from Outkick. We're so fired up to have him. We're going to have him on in here in a little bit. Guys, welcome to Pigskin Frenzy on this beautiful Thursday afternoon and chilly Thursday afternoon. It's like 52 degrees here. I'm Joel Norris, and whether you're watching on YouTube, listening on Podbean, Spotify, Apple, a big thank you for taking some time out of your Thursday to just sit back, watch, and listen to some college football coverage presented by me. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, like each episode, leave comments down below. Spotify, Podbean, and Apple, all you got to do is share around with others and follow on there as well. X and Instagram's at Pigskin_Frenzy, and the website's www.pigskinfrenzy.weebly.com. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a very special guest for week 9. We're so pumped to have him. He is the co-host of Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow on weekdays on Outkick. He's the one, the only, Mr. Chad Withrow. Chad, how are you doing, man? Welcome to Pigskin Frenzy.
I'm doing great, Joel. It was great to be on the show with you today. And you're right. This is the most heavily anticipated season every year with college football, and it flies by. I mean, in the blink of an eye. Think about how soon it seems like, but also how long ago it seems where Florida State beat Alabama. And just seeing where both those programs are just, 8 or 9, short weeks later, if that. It's crazy how fast this season flies by. So good to be on the show with you today, and plenty to get into.
Oh, we're definitely going to get into some college football. I love that you mentioned the Florida State thing, because that's a very interesting thing you brought up there, especially with how the trajectory of the two programs are going. But before we get into that, let's talk about you and Outkick. Like, what's it like working for Outkick? Because I think this is a fun question to bring up. I asked Trey Wallace this a couple of weeks ago on the show. Shout out to Trey Wallace. He's the man. What's it like working for Outkick? And also, what's it like working with Jonathan Hutton on Hot Mic every weekday?
Hutton and I have worked together for years. We had a show in Nashville called Midday 180, going back to 2012, the start of that year. And we went almost a decade, 2012 to 2021, which in local sports talk radio is a lifetime. You don't normally see a show stay together. Paul Koharski, our other co-host, was a part of that as well. And we had a blast. We've always had a great working relationship. We're friends off the show as well, hang out a lot together. So it's been awesome working with Jonathan Hutton. It's been really fun moving over to Outkick with him as well. In terms of working for Outkick, I go way back with Clay Travis, and he hosted a show with me starting back in 2007 on local Nashville radio when we were both young bucks at the time. We're not so much anymore, but we were at the time. And, hosting that show with Clay, we got to know each other really well and developed a relationship that way. So I knew when I saw what Clay was doing with Outkick starting back in 2011 that there could come a time where our paths would cross again and I'd be working with him professionally with Outkick. And it just so happens that when our contracts were up, our third contract at our local radio station, there was an opportunity to move to Outkick, where I see a lot of things like what you're doing digitally. A lot of things are moving digital at that time, and they continue to move that way. So, took a leap of faith to go work with Clay and work for Clay. And I've always bought into his vision. He's one of the smartest, hardest working guys that I know. And I'll continue to follow Clay with what he's doing, and what he's built at Outkick, and the brand has been impressive to see. So it's been a blast. I get to talk about sports every day, a little bit of pop culture, and things that, most guys would normally want to talk about if they got together at the bar or at church on Sunday or wherever you hang out with people. You're going to talk about sports or the games from the night before. And we get to do that 5 days a week and sometimes on the weekend. So I've loved every second of it.
Absolutely, man. Is sports media always been your calling? Because to me, it's always been my calling. So I was just going to ask a follow-up to that. Is sports media always been a thing that, hey, I want to do this for a living?
It hasn't been. When I went to college, I spent a semester thinking I was going to be a doctor, and that was a big mistake. I wanted to be a sports surgeon at the time, but I wanted to work around sports. I kind of always had that vision that I wanted to be in sports. I grew up playing them, through high school, always watching them. I grew up in a generation where you could turn on Sports Center in the morning, and I'd memorize the entire show by the third running of it. The 30-minute show, because I would just watch it over and over and over again. But I never really had that correlation that I was going to do that from viewer, spectator, to actually being a member of sports media until I got through college. Didn't take a single broadcasting class, but I got through college and I had an internship with the Houston Astros because at the time I thought I wanted not to be a doctor, but to work in the front office for a pro sports team. When that opportunity fell through last minute, I ended up getting a job and an internship with a local radio station in Nashville, and that grew into an on-air role. And here I am today, 20 years later, 21 years later, still in the same profession that I started out in. But there was never really a light bulb moment. It's something I knew I wanted to work in sports. I didn't think this was the avenue I would go. But once I started doing it, I was pretty good at it, continued to try to get better at it, and really enjoyed it. So here we are today.
And he's really good at what he does, guys. Go and follow Hot Mike each and every weekday. I mean, he's really good at what he does. He's been doing it for years as a veteran. I noticed something in your office there really quick before we get into college football talk. I see the Power T over there.
Yep.
You're a Vol. Yep. If I'm correct, you are a Vol. Talk about
I'm a Tennessee grad. I think when I started out in the business, of course, everyone who, most of the people who listen to my show were Tennessee fans also. In the mid-state, and we were the Vol Network affiliate. But I was always taught this whole thing about, like, you can't tell people where you're from, and you got to play it right down the middle and can't act like you're one team or another. And I'm thinking, guys, the internet exists, right? Like, people can easily find out where you went to school or who you root for or whatever. So the moment I decided to lean into it, and look, I'm brutally honest, good or bad, about Tennessee, right? But I think it's important for people to know that everybody's a fan of something. It's why they got into this business. So I am a VFL. I'm a Vol for life. I'm not ashamed of it. I wear it proudly on the bookcase behind me, and I'll tell anyone who asks that I am in fact a Vol. But that's also not going to stop me from calling out Tennessee when I think they need to be called out. In fact, I'll probably lean more into it in calling them out because I'm a little bit more emotionally attached to it than maybe some other teams.
That's a good follow-up question. I want to ask that right now. But you said the internet. I mean, look, I just discovered that I was found on the internet, and I'm on the internet plastered with pigskin stuff, and I'm just like, okay, let's calm down. But anyway, it just goes with the job, I guess. What's your assessment on Tennessee season so far? I know we're about to get into college football talk, but what's your assessment on Tennessee season so far?
Yeah, I think they've over-delivered on expectations, right? Like, fair or not, especially in college football, we spend so much time. We spend 8 to 9 months building up to a season where it's all talk and speculation about what that team's going to be. The moment after spring practice when Nico Iamaleava left and Tennessee was left without a quarterback or just two backups, no one would have thought that after they played Georgia, everyone would be saying, oh, that's a possible playoff team. They might be one of the better teams in the SEC. So I think they've over-delivered so far this season. Now, 5-2 is what Vegas expected them to be. Right, they've won every game they've been favored in, and they lost the 2 games they weren't favorites in. So it's gone pretty standard so far. They could be favored from here on out, even though I saw the Oklahoma line, I think it's 1.5. So very close, basically a pick 'em that's going to be in Knoxville a week from now. But no, I'm pleased with the season so far. Joey Aguilar has been better than I could have ever imagined in that straight swap with UCLA with Nico and Joey Aguilar. Didn't know really anything about him until he got on campus, and he's over-delivered. So I think Tennessee's season has gone well. The defense has been underwhelming, which has been a surprise. I really thought it was going to be the defense that would carry this team while Aguilar and everyone else figured it out, and the new receivers. The new receivers have been lights out. The offensive line has been good. Aguilar's been good. Defense has struggled a lot at times. But to be at 5-2 right now, I think if you're a Tennessee fan, you got to be pleased with that. And you got everything out in front of you. Now, they don't play well on the road, and most SEC teams don't compared to home, but that has been a problem for Josh Heupel. So it's always about the next challenge, which is going to Lexington and taking care of business against a Kentucky team that's not as good as Tennessee. And if Tennessee plays well at all in this game, they're going to win, and that's got to be the focus for Tennessee is get through this game, and that could set up a powerhouse matchup with Oklahoma that could end up being kind of a college football playoff play-in game.
Absolutely. And the thing is, they have everything in front of them. Like you said, 5-2, right? 5-2. It's so weird because LSU's 5-2 as well, and they have a lot of heat under them. But the difference between LSU and Tennessee is that it's just a little. Tennessee's playing better. I think that's the whole gist of it. But let's talk about some more overall broad college football talk. What's your ranking reactions to Week 9? You probably, there's a lot of people that don't care about the rankings. I mean, and I'm one of the AP people that, okay, I don't really care. I care about my rankings and the playoff rankings and all that coming up in 2 weeks. But is there any moves that just surprised you or
Yeah, I think, Texas being ranked, you're talking about two losses looking different for everyone. They lose at Florida. They don't do anything on offense against Ohio State. I mean, that loss doesn't look too bad right now.
Yeah.
Losing 14-7 to Ohio State, the way Ohio State's looked the rest of the year. They squeak by Kentucky on the road. I don't really know what they've done to have that ranking right now. But the top 10, when you've got Georgia Tech, Vandy, and Indiana in it, I think that's what jumps out to me. Like, we are in a new world, a new era of college football that we're looking at 3 top 10 programs, and there's nothing fluky about it. If there's one fluke, it might be Georgia Tech to an extent, but we know Indiana's a powerhouse right now under Kurt Cignetti. And hey, Mark Cuban and other Indiana alums are going to continue stroking checks as long as they're winning, and they're going to be a contender because their coach is so great. And then with Vanderbilt and Clark Lee, I mean, the way he was able to turn that thing around after year 3, where they really took a dip down to go to 2-10 and become what they are today, has been incredible. And that's a legit top 10 team. There was nothing fluky about that win over LSU. They dominated. They dominated up front, physically whipped LSU in that game. And people would be surprised to hear that if we said that right before the season started. But that's exactly what happened. So that's what stands out to me, are those 3 teams in the top 10.
And Mizzou and Vandy's a Pigskin game in a minute, so we're going to break that down in a minute. I'm with you. I think this to be the notion of Vanderbilt and just being in the top 10 is surprising, because it's the first time in my lifetime that I've seen them in the top 10. And not only that, when you think about what Clark Lee said on, I think it was on 3 Sports interview the other day, he said that, we're not hiding behind anybody anymore. We're not going to sit in the corner and just, take it. We're going to just come at you, and we're going to be tough, and we're going to be this whole new brand of Vandy football. So I'm with you. I think Vandy's is surprising.
You said it's the first time in your lifetime that, you've seen Vandy in the top 10. My father is 81 years old, and the last time Vandy was in the top 10, he was just turned 3. It was 1947 was the last time. So you're not alone in the amount of people who've not seen Vandy as a top 10 team in their lifetime. You got to be close to 80 or in your 80s to have seen a top 10 Vandy team before this past week. So it's impressive. I love Clark Lee. We've gotten to know him quite a bit, doing our show out of Nashville, and he's done great things to that program. Credit Barton Simmons, his general manager also, who does a terrific job of finding the guys that fit their culture and what they're doing and that can play. So they've done a really good job.
Miami's at number 9. Real quick question before we go to our upset alerts and preview and predictions, but do you think that loss to Louisville is going to hurt Miami in the long run?
I do. They still should win out, based on their schedule, I think. But, Joel, when you see that loss at home especially, these Friday night games have been weird. I don't know that I'm signing up for Friday night games if I'm one of these teams that's a favorite in these games, but I think that's really going to hurt them, and it hurts the ACC. Miami was that one team sort of carrying the banner that everyone could say, well, that's a national championship contender. They're one of the best teams in the country, and then you lay an egg at home to Louisville, and Louisville's good, but Louisville also lost at home to Virginia, so Louisville can be had as well. I just think that's a really bad loss, not just for Miami, but for the entire conference.
Absolutely, and Louisville's right back in it. They're right back in for a CFP bid. I said that on Tuesday's episode. They just got to pray that Virginia loses, right? So they can get into an ACC title bid. But let's talk about who's on upset alert.
By the way, if I'm Penn State, I'm looking at Jeff Brom. I know he's a Louisville grad, but that to me makes a ton of sense if I'm them. That guy can coach ball, and he's going to do well wherever he's at. And his whole demeanor, it fits the Northeast and that Penn State program very well.
So now you're bringing me up another follow-up question. So Jeff Brom, because a lot of people are kind of sleeping on him. I think he's a really, really good coach. I think he'd be a good coach anywhere. Do you see another job besides Penn State where Jeff Brom would fit at?
I mean, I think he would do well at any job. I know I've heard some connections with Florida. It doesn't feel like the Florida coach to me when I think about Jeff Brom. I mean, look, he's not going to leave for Virginia Tech, but he'd do well at Virginia Tech. He would do well at Arkansas. I think that would make a lot of sense. But he's at his alma mater. So it's going to take a special gig. And I think it would take, an Auburn who should come open, a Penn State, a Florida. I think anything below that in this hiring cycle, now I would even put Florida State below that. I don't think he's looking at it seriously. I think Penn State you got to consider.
Yeah.
If they're going to spend top dollar and you're Jeff Brom and you're at Louisville, I get it, your alma mater, but you got to consider moving to the Big Ten and taking that Penn State job. Look at Penn State's schedule next year, too. I mean, if you're able to piece together some money for transfers and keep your roster intact, they should be in the playoff next year. I mean, that schedule is as weak can get because of that gigantic Big Ten where you could be playing a really top-heavy schedule or play no one. And we're going to see that next year. I think their toughest game is at Michigan, and that's about it. They get USC at home for Penn State. So that's a really primo job for someone to take over for James Franklin. I really think Brom makes the most sense for Penn State.
Last question. We're going to upset alerts. Do you think James Franklin should have been fired to begin with?
Yeah, he should have been fired. It was also very quick. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say I was expecting him to get fired after losing to Northwestern. I'm a big fan of Todd McShay in his podcast on the Ringer Network, and I was listening to him. We were driving down to Florida for for a fall break, and I'm listening to his podcast, and he does something late at night after the games are over. And that was the first place I heard it where he said, if you're Penn State, you fire James Franklin right now. He's like, you save your current team. And he talked about, selfish leadership, and eventually selfish leadership is going to come back to get you. And it just took this long to get James Franklin, and he doesn't have the buy-in with that team anymore. And I was like, well, that makes a lot of sense too. But yeah, I was surprised that it was this early in the season. I mean, they were in the Final Four, a season ago, and we're not even to Halloween. And he's fired the next year. So I don't think anybody could say they saw that coming. I mean, think about that game and the build-up to the Oregon game and the whiteout. They go to overtime against Oregon and lose, and 2 weeks later, a loss to UCLA and Northwestern, he's fired. I mean, it was pretty abrupt, but it also goes to show that there was a lot of things going on behind the scenes that we really don't know about.
Absolutely, yeah. Who's on upset alert for Week 9? There's a lot of games. A lot of games.
Yeah, I mean, I think, looking at the SEC, Texas against Mississippi State, that could really knock them out. Mississippi State has been right there on the edge. They take Tennessee to overtime at home. They had a great chance, really, against Texas A&M. I think it's a 4-point game in the fourth quarter, and it gets away from them late. And then they should have beat Florida. They throw, it gets tipped, and the game ends where they had a chance. They were right there at field goal range to win it with a last-second field goal. So it feels like Jeff Lebby is ready to knock over that first domino and get that SEC win that he doesn't have yet. So I would put the Texas Longhorns on upset alert this week.
Yeah, I've said that too. I've kept saying this all season. I think Mississippi State's going to get an SEC win, at least one. We just got to figure out which one it's going to be. So it could be this weekend. Do you think, and this is an interesting question, I guess, do you think LSU has a shot against A&M Saturday?
I do. I really think they do. I think A&M's going to win. They're a better football team. But, man, it's tough to bet against LSU at home at night. And that place is going to be charged up. Now, both ways. This works for good and bad. Because Brian Kelly, the aura of Brian Kelly at LSU, I think, is dead with the fans. Right? Now, you could say they died last year. It's over now. I mean, they went to Vandy and they got handled pretty easily in that second half when you really watch the game. So I think the aura, the power of Brian Kelly's gone with that fan base. It's not going to stop the LSU faithful from going nuts on Saturday night in Death Valley for Texas A&M. And this is also same time of year a year ago, if you remember, Mike Elko, great start to the year, looking like a possible playoff team. Did they lose their last four, I think, of the season? They went on a 4-game losing streak. So we've come to that point in the schedule also for A&M. So I think it's going to be a great game, great atmosphere. I think A&M wins a close one, but would not be surprised at all if LSU wins at home at night and gives A&M their first loss.
And A&M has a bye week, and then has to go to Columbia, Missouri. So that's going to be a very interesting contest as well. One more, and then we'll go on to our preview and predictions and wrap up. I think Houston and Arizona State could be an upset alert game too. I think Arizona State's favored by 7.5. I think Houston could probably do something, maybe.
So we have a segment on our show called Wrong Team Favored, where we just have to pick an outright winner. That's kind of your upset alert that you're talking about. And I don't want to spoil too much, but in our group text, your game, you're not the only one who feels like Arizona State could be on upset alert with Houston. So there could be someone else in our panel that feels the same way. that Big 12 is exciting.
Yeah.
Like that's my takeaway of all these games. Like when you go through and look at just some of this week's matchups, of course you had the Holy War last week. You know, you got BYU with a big one this week also on the road at Iowa State. That's a really difficult conference to pick. It's not the quality of the SEC, but the depth is there. You know, it's a top to bottom, with the exception of a couple teams at the very bottom. But you've got, 10 to 12 teams that you're not going to be shocked if any one of them beats the other.
Yeah.
And I think that makes for some exciting ball. We're seeing that in the SEC. There are 11 teams in the SEC that have 2 or fewer losses in conference. Tennessee and Florida being the 10th and 11th right now. But if I were to tell you Tennessee or Florida were to beat anybody in the conference at home, it wouldn't shock somebody.
Right.
It could happen, and your mind wouldn't be blown by it. So, point being, there's a lot of talent in the SEC. I think there's less talent in the Big 12, but the same amount of parity. And the game you're talking about with Willie Fritz and Houston taking on Arizona State this week, that's a great example of that.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting game to keep an eye on is Houston and Arizona State. I mean, 7.5, Houston's not been terrible. Obviously, they've had a couple losses, but still, they haven't been terrible. So they just lost against really good teams, right? Like Texas Tech. So, yeah, that's a very interesting matchup. I think State's a good one, and I think Houston's one to keep an eye out. Preview predictions. Let's go with that. Week 9 to wrap up everything, and let's start it off. Then you're going to be interested in this one, I guess. You're like, are you serious? I mean, you're really interesting for doing this game. Group of 5. G5 Joel exists, ladies and gentlemen. South Florida at Memphis. Playoff implication game. They are, both 6-1. They both need a win here to try to get, build up their resume to represent the CFP. So what's your analysis on this game, and who do you have?
I love Alex Golesh. I think South Florida wins. I think Alex Golesh is going to get one of these jobs. Could be Virginia Tech, could be UCLA, could be Florida State, if they come open at the end of the year and staying right there in state. Yeah, I think USF wins. Boy, I tell you what, one of maybe the most stunning outcome last week that no one's talking about. You are, because you talk Group of 5 on this show. Yeah. But, I mean, Memphis losing to UAB. You want to talk about the interim coach bump that you could get. Alex Mortensen comes in, son of Chris Mortensen, and takes over for Trent Dilfer, and they look like a different team. They've been terrible all year, and UAB wins at home over Memphis in a stunner to give them their first loss of the year. So I think that carries over a bit, and I think USF's the better team. So give me the Bulls over Memphis.
There we go. See, great pick. See, I'm going to try to back that up here. Try to piggyback off that. South Florida's keys are simple. You got to win on third down. I mean, 9 for 18 on third down versus FAU. I mean, you got to just be really efficient on third down against this team. Establish the running game. I mean, you're 16th in rushing offense in college football. Memphis is 25th in rushing defense in college football. So your running game is good enough to go on the road and try to tire this defense out and establish that running game and get everything going. And then put pressure on the quarterback. I mean, whether it's Hill, Lewis, or Arrington who's starting, we don't know who's going to start yet. Saturday, if Brendan Lewis is able to play, we don't know. But 5 sacks versus FAU, South Florida had. They had 5 sacks against the Owls. So that's an interesting stat there. Just put pressure on the quarterback, whoever's starting for Memphis. And then for Memphis, minimize the penalties. 8 penalties for 54 yards versus UAB. Surprisingly, like you just said, they played an interim coach in Alex Mortensen at UAB. So just minimize those penalties at home against South Florida a little bit. Slow down their running game, and then protect your quarterback. I think those are the keys for Memphis, and I think if you do enough, you'll get it going. Who do I have winning this ball game? I'm with you. I think South Florida's going to win the game. I think they cover. I think it will probably be a 10-point win. Give me 31-21 South Florida. I think South Florida's a good team, and I think they will probably most likely represent in the college football playoff this season. So
I'm totally with you.
Let's go with BYU at Iowa State. Interesting game there in the Big 12. I believe the last line I checked, Chad, was Iowa State 2.5-point favorite, which is interesting to me. So who do you have in that game? It's kind of a tricky game for both. And what's your analysis?
I had Iowa State represent the Big 12 in the playoff before the season. They were good in the first week, over in Ireland, or week 0, in that win over K-State. Been good at times. Been a little bit disappointing here lately. I love that BYU's got a quarterback named Bachmeier with the number 47. Want to talk about a throwback? Give me any quarterback that's physical with a number in the 40s. BYU was impressive against Utah this past week. Give me the Cougs. I think BYU goes on the road and wins against Iowa State.
And people keep picking against BYU, right? And they keep getting, just throwing it back in their face. So
You cannot pick against a quarterback that wears a number in the 40s.
Right.
You got a quarterback wearing number 47, you can't. That's my football rule. Can't pick against him.
And he's legendary. He's got to be legendary. So,
yes,
and the name like Bear, right? So, win the time of possession battle if you're BYU. Second in Big 12, 12th in college football. They're really good at ball control. They're really good at holding on to the ball and just ticking away at the clock. So, keep doing that. Win on third down. You're 3 for 12 on third down versus Utah. You got to be better on third down against this Iowa State defense. If you can do that and up that number, you'll be fine. And then establish the running game. 10th in rushing offense in college football, second in the Big 12. If you can just gash that rushing defense of Iowa State, you should be fine if you're BYU, right? So, and if you're Iowa State, slow down their running game. You're 7th in rushing defense in the Big 12, 64th in college football. Not the best numbers, but if you can muster up some defense and force as many 3-and-outs, you should be fine. Force as many 3-and-outs as you can, like I said, and then Rocco Beck has to have a breakout game. I mean, he has to have a standout game in this one to get Iowa State back on track. Who do I have winning this ball game? Chad, I had Iowa State winning the Big 12. I had them going to the playoff as the Big 12 champion. Any prediction can change. So give me BYU winning this ball game. I think it's going to be a close game. I think they win by a touchdown. 7. It'll be a 7-point win. Give me a low-scoring game, though. 21-14. BYU 21, Iowa State 14. I don't think there's going to be a lot of points scored in this one. So give me BYU winning this game. Missouri at Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's a 2.5-point favorite in Nashville. If I told you, and if I would have told you like years ago, that Missouri and Vanderbilt was going to college, college game day was going to Vanderbilt and Nashville, what would you have said about that, honestly?
Well, and then, Eli Drinkwitz is playing the disrespect card this week about, they don't even want to talk to us. This is all about Vandy and sort of the woe is me, we're disrespected. That's amazing that someone's playing the disrespect card with Vandy. It's Vandy that normally plays the disrespect card,
right.
And they could do that in pretty much every game they're a part of. No longer. Look, Vandy's winning this game. I'm going to make it real simple. I feel very confident that they're going to win this game. Missouri should have lost at Auburn. Auburn's not nearly as good as Vanderbilt. Vandy's created a better home field environment. It's not great. It's not one of these cathedrals of college football they're walking into or anything like that. And there's been a lot of the opposing fan base in the stadium in Nashville. But I think it's going to be way dominant Vandy fans this week. Missouri doesn't travel as well as a fan base. I think Vandy wins by 2 scores in this game. Give me Vandy by 2 touchdowns.
That is bold, man. And that could catapult them right probably to a CFP bid as well. Even Atlanta, if someone loses out too. So Missouri,
if they win this one, they really just have to split at Texas and Tennessee. And I think they're likely going to go at that point because they would just have the 2 losses and then handle Kentucky and Auburn at home, which they should do. They're going to be in a great spot if they win this one. They just couldn't lose both at Texas and at Tennessee at that point.
2 scores. That's shocking. I love that pick. It's very bold. See, Chad Withrow, ladies and gentlemen, from Outkick. Missouri's keys for me are simple. Win a time of possession battle, 4th in college football, and 1st in the SEC. Just hold on to the ball and make sure Diego Pavia doesn't get on the field as much. I think that's the main reason how you win. If you protect the football, though, that would be even better because 2 turnovers versus Auburn. Bo Pribula has had some struggles protecting the football. So just protect the football and then win on the third down battle. 8 for 17 on third down versus Auburn. All of that, and you should be fine if you're Missouri. Win the time of possession battle if you're Vandy. 27th in college football, 5th in SEC. Make sure that Mizzou offense doesn't get the ball. I think the time of possession battle is the key factor in this game. Slow down their running game. They're 1st in rushing offense in the SEC. Missouri is 7th in college football. But Vandy has the 12th rushing defense in college football and 6th in the conference. So they're no slouch at rushing defense either. Try to slow them down, and then everything should be good. And then force turnovers. If you can force those turnovers, get Bo Pribula to turn the ball over just enough, you should probably be able to win this game. Who do I have winning this ball game? Well, Vandy is so confident, man. I love Vanderbilt. I love Diego Pavia and what they're doing. I can't bet against Missouri in this spot. I think Missouri right now is just, I think after that loss against Bama, they're going to start trying to find their way again. I think Eli Drinkwitz is playing the disrespect card right to his advantage. And I think he's going to figure out a way to win this ball game. Prove me wrong. I may be wrong. I think Missouri is going to find a way to win this ball game. Give me Missouri 24, Vandy 21. I think it's going to be a 3-point contest. I think Missouri wins close, and they get the win in Nashville on the road. Tough environment, too. 24-21, give me the Tigers to beat the Doors. And an upset of all things, because Vandy is favored in that game. Last but not least, Ole Miss at Oklahoma. This is a CFP playing game, I believe. What's your analysis on this game, and who do you have?
I think Ole Miss goes there and wins. We've been waiting on Lane Kiffin to get that big road victory, in conference, and I think he gets one on Saturday. John Mateer's not really been the same since the thumb injury. Oklahoma's defense is fantastic. I think you got to put Oklahoma in that same category with Ohio State as two of the best defenses in the country. But I really like Ole Miss. I mean, the first 5 possessions of that game in Athens, they score 5 touchdowns in that game. So they're going to score enough in this one. The defense will get just enough stops. I got Ole Miss by a field goal on the road, and they're going to be right there in that college football playoff mix the rest of the way. So give me Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss to win one on the road.
Very, very good pick. If you're Ole Miss, you got to play discipline. You got to start off fast and explosive. Those are the 2 keys there. And a big key here is this: protect Trinidad Chambliss. OU is first in the SEC in sacks. 6 sacks versus South Carolina to be exact against Lenore Sellers in that team. If you're Oklahoma, you got to establish the running game, man. I mean, 98th in rushing defense is Ole Miss in college football. 15th. Second to last in the SEC. OU is 12th in rushing offense in the SEC. That's the caveat, and 97th in college football overall. But they had 171 rushing yards versus South Carolina. I know it's South Carolina, but Ole Miss's rushing defense isn't that great. If they can figure out a way to boost that running game up, they should be fine. I think forced turnovers. I think if you force turnovers, that should be good as well. That defense is, like you said, just nasty. And then you got to minimize the penalties. I mean, I think 10 penalties versus 98 yards versus South Carolina was rough. That's not going to fly against Ole Miss. I think you got to be disciplined as well in this game. Who do I have winning this ball game? Well, I think it's going to be a back and forth game. I think that it will be close. I'm with you. I think it's a field goal. I think it's the other end, though. I think OU gets the win close only because of their defense. And I think that they're going to figure out a way to move the ball a little bit on the ground. And that's going to create enough for OU to win the game. Give me OU 28-25. Weird score.
The great thing about these games, Joel, I mean, nothing, surprises you. It's so even. The parity in the conference is incredible that I could absolutely see Oklahoma winning this game at home. But I got Ole Miss. But it should be a great weekend.
It really should be a great weekend. Last question before we head out. Is this going to be it for Ole Miss if they lose this game, CFP-wise?
I'd have to look at the rest of the schedule to see if they're going to survive with the 2 losses. I mean, it's not it mathematically because I think it, people are, there's going to be multiple 10-2. I really do think that it's going to work out that if you're 10-2 in the SEC, others will lose enough that they're going to beat each other up enough to where they're going to be, right there with a chance.
Yeah, the rest of their schedule: South Carolina, Citadel, Florida, and Mississippi State in the Egg Bowl.
Yeah, they're fine.
Yeah, they should be fine. Yeah.
Now, I think what comes into question is their resume of wins. Their best win at that point. They're going to need LSU to finish strong.
Yeah.
To have a strong win, right? I mean, Kentucky, Duke, Georgia State. There's not a lot of great wins on that resume. For Ole Miss if it does come down to another 2-loss team. But, no, I think if they lose, they're still very much in the hunt.
Absolutely. Chad Withrow from Outkick, ladies and gentlemen. He has been a great Week 9 guest picker, and we are out of time. A big thank you for taking some time out of your Thursday to just sit back, watch, and listen to some college football coverage presented by me and us. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. Like each episode, leave comments down below. Spotify, Podbean, and Apple. All you got to do is just share around with others and follow on there as well. X and Instagram is at Pigskin_Frenzy. Follow like the pages there. And then you got the website, www.pigskinfrenzy.weebly.com. Guys, we are climbing 5,500 listeners and counting, about to be at 5,600 listeners and counting. Thank you for tuning in each and every week. We couldn't do this show without you guys, and we could not do this show without our Lord and Savior, Jesus. We give him all the praise for being and delivering us into college football media and being on Pigskin Frenzy each and every week. Guys, Chad Withrow, ladies and gentlemen, from Outkick. Tune in to Hutton and Withrow and Hot Mike each and every day on Outkick. Guys, enjoy this weekend of college football. We'll be back for Week 9 recaps on Tuesday. Guys, I'm Joel Norris. That's Chad Withrow. We're signing off. For everybody out there, please and always stay the course.